I might go and spend my money today. I've been working day and night and I'm in need of a break. I've been feeling so great. I got a pretty little shawty trying to ride on the wave. Whoa, I might go and spend my money today. I've been working day and night and I'm in need of a break. I've been feeling so great, yeah.
What's up, fight fans? Welcome back to Season 2, Episode 4 of the Blood, Sweat, and Tears podcast. I'm your host, Jared Wilson. I had a lovely conversation today with my guest. She's a 13-fight UFC veteran, former world title challenger, tough 18 veteran, and she's fought the who's who in women's MMA. I had the pleasure to talk to Raquel Pennington. We talked about her fight today against Pannie Kianzad. Make sure to check that out today. And then we also tapped into the mental side of fighting. She's battled a lot of adversity inside and outside the cage. She broke one of her bones in her leg in one of her fights. You'll see that in the interview today. And then she just had a lot of injuries outside the cage, which forced her to miss time and really just be comfortable with herself. So I hope you enjoyed the interview. What's up, fight fans? Welcome back to Season 2, Episode 4. Welcome to the show today, Raquel. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How did fight camp go? How far out did you find out before? How much did you have camp did you get in? Sorry.
It's been a solid camp. It's been a long camp. I actually did a 12-week camp.
Okay.
I've kind of I've been training on and off and whatnot, but then Tisha fought back in August, so I kind of used her camp as the start of my camp. But Pannie and I were actually supposed to fight back in June, so it was kind of like a broken up camp because I ended up having to pull from that.
Yeah. So you feel like you got a good camp in then, and especially for your opponent then, what's your thoughts on her then? Especially since you know that you already supposed to fight her before, so you kind of got like an extra long look at her in a sense. But you've seen her for years anyways, so it's not anything different. But
yeah, I'm excited to fight her. I think stylistically, the matchup is going to make for an exciting fight. But at the end of the day, like, it's kind of one of those situations where I've been in the top in the world for a really long time. She's coming up, and it's, I understand that she's trying to advance her career and whatnot, and this is the way to do it. But she called me out a while back while I was on my layoff. And so in my mind frame, it's just kind of one of those things to be careful what you ask for.
When you get called out, do you take a little bit of disrespect to that at all? Or is this kind of just part of the fight game?
It's just part of it. Everybody wants to advance. And obviously, before the whole suspension with USADA and my layoff and stuff, I've been ranked number 4. So obviously, if you want to climb the rankings, like, an easy way to do it, especially because the media and everybody gets so involved and makes hype behind it, is to talk to shit and call people out.
It's true. Any kind of any prediction for your fight?
Yeah, my hand raised.
What walkout song do you use and why? Or like for this upcoming fight at least, because I kind of like I've seen that you've had different walkout songs for your other fights, but what walkout song are you going to use this fight, and why do you choose it?
It all just kind of depends on like my vibe. I'm huge with music, so whatever's kind of speaking to my soul during fight camp. This fight, I'm actually walking out to "Ain't Nobody" by Shaka Khan, and just kind of back. I put it on, and like it was just making me want to be light on my feet and dance around, and that's what happens on Saturday. I'm going to dance in the octagon. So,
and that makes sense too. That it's kind of just getting something that just makes you feel comfortable. It makes you just, because like you said, it's just like once you get the octagon, that's all you want to do is just be comfortable in there.
Yeah, for sure.
So for yourself, then, how did you get into martial arts?
I actually broke my back snowboarding, so I couldn't take any of my athletics scholarships to college. I ended up taking an academic scholarship to the university in Colorado Springs, and I was kind of just going through rehab. There was one point in my life, I grew up a huge tomboy, and I always played tackle football with the guys on the pavement. I have a cousin who's 5 months older than me, and we used to always get into fist fights. We were little terrors together. But other than that, I didn't grow up fighting or doing anything. At the age of like 12, there was one point where I wanted to box, and my parents were like, "No, you're too pretty and your teeth are too nice." So that kind of went out the window. So martial arts was more of a joke, I guess. At that point, it was just like I was going through rehab and kind of trying to get back into shape. And my mom and I were at the gym, and the first team I started with, they were in one of the yoga studios in the back of the gym. And they're on these like little 1/2-inch puzzle piece mats, doing judo and slamming each other around, throwing elbows. And I was like, oh yeah, that's it. And so I told my mom, I was like, I'm gonna go do that. I think she just thought it'd be something good to get me going again. And we went and talked to the coach. I went in the next day, and my first training session ever was sparring. So kind of got fed to the wolves and figured it out.
How long did you have to go through rehab then for your back?
I was doing rehab for about 8 months.
What was that like mentally then? Obviously wanting to be a snowboarder or whatever, and then just have the transition mentally. And then obviously you came around full circle, but in that process, what was it like in that initial stage?
It was overall frustrating just because I'm super independent. I like to be on the go. I'm super adventurous and I love doing things. It was just a typical day on the mountain. I went with a buddy and we just went to go snowboard and have some fun. And it was at the beginning of the morning, and when everything happened, the frustrating part is I still lived at home at that time, and the basement was my domain. It was all built out and stuff. And I couldn't even go down the stairs. Like I couldn't function. I was back brace. I was on crutches. Like I just couldn't move. I had to be codependent on people. And I didn't realize how much like that took a toll on me. So I started doing stupid stuff. I remember my mom jumped in the shower and I was like, I'm going downstairs. So I got my butt creep down the stairs. I ended up falling down the stairs and making it worse.
Yeah.
And so, that was my moment of learning a little bit of patience and learning how to actually sit down and recover. But I've never been the type of person to really experience like depression and anxiety and all this stuff. And in those moments that I've had down throughout the years of being an athlete and having injuries, it definitely kicked in. So, but it always makes for the comeback. You know what I mean? It makes it more exciting, makes it more motivating. So.
And as cliche as it is, everything happens for a reason. Like you broke your back then, and now look at your life now. You're thriving. You're a UFC fighter. You fought for a world title. You win this fight, you're arguably be put in the back of the UFC top 10 again with a huge fight coming. So I feel like life's good for you right now.
Oh, absolutely. My coach and I were actually just talking about that. It's crazy how life just kind of turns. I never experienced like the whole college life and all this other stuff that my friends grew up doing and the things that they went out and all the stories that they have. But like I have something completely different and a totally different lifestyle that like, I wake up feeling blessed and grateful every single day, and I wouldn't change for the life of me. But damn, it's been some hard work.
I bet.
Lots of sacrifice.
That's awesome. No, it's good to see, because it's just like especially in fighting, you have to have that inner strength that you've already obviously shown, because if you just pack her in, then and not even just in fighting, but in life, then you're not going to succeed. But for yourself though, had some adversity, and then it just kind of made you tougher. And that's why I think you're a great fighter now.
Thank you. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely built me to where I'm at, giving me a totally different mind frame. And, I think it's helped I coach high school gymnastics and I've coached other athletes and stuff. And it's kind of cool just to like leave the impact, but do something that I'm extremely passionate about. And, I'm my own boss. And so what gets better than that,
Exactly. Getting into the fight game late, then, did you have a favorite fighter at all growing up?
Honestly, I didn't. It's kind of cool to see where my career has progressed to. I remember I was visiting my dad in Florida for the first time, and he's like, hey, check out this sport. He's the one that showed me MMA. And it was just like, that fight was Tanya Evinger versus Gina Carano. Those were the first two I ever seen fight. And then to see where my career went, I fought Tanya Evinger to get into the Ultimate Fighter house. So it was pretty cool. But, I grew up with boxing. So it was like freaking everybody else that I watched. But no, I was a big basketball player. And so I didn't pay attention to any kind of martial arts or anything.
Before I tap into Ultimate Fighter, who's your favorite basketball player then?
Back then, I used to love Cheryl Swoops and Lisa Leslie.
Oh, nice. Cheryl Swoops she was fun, actually. Lisa Leslie's like the GOAT maybe too, actually. But
yeah.
So speaking of the Ultimate Fighter, then 8 years ago already, time flies. But what are you able to take away from that? And are you happy to see that it's back on again?
Absolutely. I think the Ultimate Fighter is a great way for not only for athletes to be able to grow. And for me, it was like one of those things where I was completely taken out of my comfort zone. So everything that I knew, like it was taken away. I was locked into a house with athletes. We all had the same drive, the same motivation, but then everybody's so different, so unique, has their own way of doing things. You didn't have your typical like routines. You couldn't have music, books, anything. Like you had no choice but to interact and kind of just really grow. So I loved my experience on the Ultimate Fighter. It was definitely like lives up to its name. Like it's tough. It's definitely an experience, and it'll push you. But I love the fact that it's not just fighting. Like it lets the world see athletes behind the scene and as people, and like just kind of how they are, whatnot. Obviously TV, they can clip stuff the way that they want and portray people certain ways. But I think as opposed to like a fight series where it's just kind of like showing the athlete as athletes and then going out and performing. The Ultimate Fighter gives, like I said, everybody an opportunity to see so much more. So I mean, I was super excited when they decided to bring that back.
And especially, I think just being in the same house as somebody who you're going to fight with, and the fact that you could fight someone on your same team or something like that, there's so many different obstacles and diversities where there's just so many chances to grow in the house. So I think that's why it's just so necessity. It's so necessary for fighting, just especially for a top tier organization like the UFC too.
Yeah, it shows you a different level of discipline. It kind of gets to that point. I know how people they try to hype things up, they stay away from their opponents, like it's this whole ordeal. When you're in the Ultimate Fighter, I mean, I remember me and Jessamyn Duke, we won fight of the season, but that morning, like we were having breakfast together, sitting across from each other, and it was just like, I'll see you today at 1 octagon. And it's such a different feeling. But then at the same time, at any moment, like you got to be ready to make weight. And so you're having to learn that discipline and constantly stay focused and whatnot. And then you don't have any other distractions, you're not out there in your everyday life and stuff. Like you're literally eating, training, sleeping, and repeating. And so, and then, you on my season, like we had some athletes go through like their own struggles when it came to weight cut or like emotions and all kinds of different things. So then you're around that. And it's like, then on top of that, it's Christmas every night. You write on a list what you want, and the next day you're getting stuff delivered, and there's all these temptations. And so it really teaches you different things.
I think that's the one thing too, just like having like nothing, like no phone, no TV, whatever. Like you're literally just tapped into it for whether it's 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever you're in for the show. It's like, that's like what people don't realize when you're just watched on TV. They just kind of see you guys and girls just fighting and just kind of 1 hour episode or whatever, 40-minute episode. But it's like realistically, you guys are just giving up everything. And so I think for yourselves as fighters, it really lets you know if you want to be a fighter or not too, because you're literally just with that and your thoughts for that whole time frame.
Oh,
for
sure.
And
it also teaches, like people don't get to see, like they get to see, like I said, on the episodes and what you were just saying, but they don't get to see that behind the scenes. So not only for like me, my experience, I fought Jessamyn Duke and we won fight of the season. It was a great performance, but I came out of that. I had 17 stitches I had a broken hand. I had a fractured forearm. And then not even 2 weeks later, I had to go into the semifinals fight, but people don't actually get to see that. It's just like fights and all this other stuff. So the stuff that actually goes behind it, because then if you say anything, it's like, hey, I'm injured, you get sent home and the replacement comes in. So like, what do you want to do? What decisions do you actually make? Yeah. And it really pushes you. It makes you dig deep in different ways and whatnot. And, I'm just glad that I had that opportunity to experience that.
Did you watch this season at all? The new season at all?
I have not. I haven't watched actually much TV at all for the past few weeks.
Well, that's good. You're obviously pretty dialed in for your fight then.
Yeah.
If you get one of your, like any of your losses back in your career now, which one would it be and why?
Any of them. I have a bitter taste in my mouth with the Holly fight. So both of them. The first fight was close. It was a controversial loss. And then the second fight, was, excuse my language, but really fucking annoying. Like the girl didn't even want to fight. And a lot of people, it was just like, okay, well, there can be the argument, well, why didn't you get your ass off the cage, or why didn't you take more advantage of certain things? But I don't think people realize, for one, Holly's a lot taller than me. And when she her leverage and just holding me up against the cage, that shit did not matter what I did. Like it was so frustrating. But the even more frustrating part was just being like that co-main event on such a huge card, and then it going like that. And then all of a sudden in her interview, it's like, oh, sorry, that wasn't the most exciting performance, but now I want a world title shot. Like, what the hell? I don't think so. So I would probably say the Holly stuff.
And that makes sense too. Just like I said, that for the fact it was on the biggest card, such a huge card that it was, and then just how the fight played out, and then that makes sense too. So for yourself personally, you fought literally the who's who in women's MMA. I can name a list right now, but don't need to. But who do you think is the women's GOAT then?
I think everybody brings something to the table, different challenges. Everybody's had their own accomplishments and stuff, which is great. Honestly, I mean, if you want to put somebody out there, I would say Amanda. She's done great things so far as both the 145, 135 division. She's fought in all the best of the best. She's knocked the heads off of all these top chicks. And that makes it even more exciting for me, because I think a lot of people, they kind of forget, and I don't get the credit that I deserve. But besides Valentina Shevchenko, who went 5 rounds with her to a decision and stuff, I was the first girl to even go 5 rounds with Amanda. And on top of that, I was coming off an 18-month layoff, major surgeries, and then I had my broken leg and had to pull from our original date. And when we went in there and Amanda kicked my leg in the first round, it was the exact spot I broke with all the nerve damage. Never experienced that in my life, with what was going on. And that turned into a little bit more of a medical issue that I needed to address. And it taught me more of that patience and stuff. But yeah, I would give Amanda the credit right now.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that too, because I didn't even remember, because time just flies so fast. Because I watched that fight with Amanda and you last night, and I forgot that you went 5 rounds with her too. And like you said, that was the first person that really just went the distance with her in a sense too, and pushed her to that championship level rounds. And so for yourself though, like you said, you got hurt in that first round. Then mentally, like how does that play out for the fight? Like how does that?
It was frustrating. Like I said, I've been in fights where I've had broken bones, and like it's like, okay, I knew something was wrong, but it didn't phase me. Like it was like I pushed through and whatnot. The nerve damage that I had in that fight, I barely avoided amputation with that leg injury that I took. And then it was just, I kind of rushed myself back, and the doctors were like, you need to do this, you need to do that. And the bone is healed, but it was just like, I'll be fine. And like, I was avoiding even using my leg all camp. I was avoiding taking kicks or doing anything. And then lo and behold, like the first freaking minute of the first round of a 25-minute fight, I get kicked there. And like I said, I fell. And I remember when I fell, I was like, oh shit, I think my leg is broke again. And it took everything I had to like stand back up. And the pain was excruciating. It was going up into my hip. It was something I never experienced. Like a broken bone as opposed to nerve damage are polar opposite feelings. And so, I couldn't even focus on what was going on in the fight. And from there, I carried a shit ton of emotion with that. Like I knew how I felt. I knew what my leg was feeling like. And it was extremely frustrating because like the warrior in me and everything, like I wanted to go forward, but like I couldn't. I was just like in fight or flight mode. And it was just, it was one of those ones that like, I didn't want to go back and rewatch that fight because how I actually felt. And then when COVID initially hit and we were quarantined, I sat there and I watched it and I was like, man, for the way that I felt and the way that my leg felt, like I sat there on my couch and I cried because I was proud as hell, like for the way that I knew that I felt, the shit that was going on. And it was just like, man, I still put up a fight and that was nowhere near what I have to offer. So like I said, it makes it more motivating for me to get back out there and like be 100% healthy and go out there and get that rematch.
And that must be an affirming feeling too, just like you said, like knowing you weren't 100%, and then you're able to go there with arguably the best fighter of all time, for even male or female. Like she has a resume, and but what was it like? Just like it must have been like draining, carrying that that frustration too. Do you think that like drained your energy quicker, just kind of like carrying that emotion and that that draining energy with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't just carry that, like I carried that on for so long. And it was just like, I really wanted to be back to the athlete that I was and like feeling the way that I was and like my winning streak and all this shit. And it was just like, I had the 18-month layoff. I had these surgeries. Surgery was not what I expected. Like it was just like one downer after another. And like, it is what it is, it made me come back. It made me figure things out. But it just felt like I was taking one beating after another. And then I developed my thyroid issue and had an issue with weight gain. Like I shot up to 174 pounds. I've never been in that boat. I was getting tested for thyroid cancer. I was balding on my hair. Like all this stuff was happening. People are sitting there. Obviously as athletes, we're accessible to the world, and people were writing shit on my social media. Oh, Raquel looks like she sits around and eats Twinkies all day, all this crazy shit. And really like I'm having major health issues going on. My body's like shut ways. But like inside it was just like, man, give me a damn break. Like I want to be myself. And so I kept pushing myself. And then I fought the Jermaine fight, and like I cannot remember that fight to save my life. I don't remember fight week. That Thursday before the fight, I was supposed to be at media day, and instead I'm at an ear, nose, and throat specialist. I woke up with a double ear infection. All kinds of stuff was going on. I couldn't even take the medicine because of the USADA stuff. And then all of a sudden my body like quit on me during weight cut. And I ended up missing weight. And like, that took an emotional toll on me just because I believe being professional, and we have two jobs: make weight and go out and perform. That's it. So when I failed on that, like that beat me into the ground, and it was just like one thing after another. And finally after that, I was like, okay, you know what? Like I really need to like step back. I need to regroup, figure something out. And it really does go deeper. Like whether people believe it or not, trauma that's held physically, it really plays a part. Your body holds on to shit mentally, physically, emotionally. Like it really has an impact. And when you can sit there and figure out how to work through that and unlock it, it's a different ball game.
It's so true. Like the average person, the average fight fan, they don't realize everything that not just like a fighter, but an athlete in general just goes through physically, emotionally, and everything. That kind of taps into my next question. Then, what do you think is more important in the fight game, the physical or the mental side? Or
obviously fighting is extremely physical, but I tell everybody it's 90% mental, 10% physical. You can sit here and you can bust your ass, take all the vitamins and do all your work, but if your head and your heart ain't right, it doesn't matter. And so I think it's extremely important, as much work that you're putting in physical, like you also need to take care of yourself mentally and emotionally. That takes work, and all the emotions that come along with it, whether it's in the gym, whether it's in your personal life, whatever it is, like it all plays a significant part. So I think the mental aspect is a lot more important.
And you kind of already mentioned already, said you're once you're able to control that. So for yourself personally, like what do you do to tap into yourself? And do you do like any kind of meditation? Do you do manifestation? Do you do breathing techniques or just kind of, so what do you do for yourself to connect with yourself then?
A bunch, I do some grounding techniques. So I kind of just pay attention to like maybe three things in the room, whether it's the way that the floor feels under my feet, the way that the air is like feeling, if it's cool, if it's hot, or I focus on something and like figure out a description of it. I sit there and like I'll work on some breathing techniques as far as like I'll breathe maybe 3 breaths, 3 seconds in, 5 seconds out, and kind of calm myself. I'll do some meditation to where I like will either lay on the floor or the bed and kind of just like zone in and really like calm my body. It's amazing what the mind does.
True, though.
Calm yourself. And then I've always been huge on journaling, but now I've done like a whole thing of like shotgun journaling. So it's instead of like sitting there and like writing like this whole little story of my days or whatever it is type journaling, like it's just all of a sudden I'll kind of just shotgun the first, like whatever thoughts, positive, negative, whatever it is, but whatever is in my mind, like got them down as bullet points. And then I'll go back and like read them the next morning. And it's amazing how like your mind can like just drastically change. So then it's like, dang, I was feeling that yesterday, but then all of a sudden today is a different ball game, and like you just keep going with it. So those are little things I do.
That's cool. Then so like for the shotgun journaling, do you do that every single day, you said then?
Like every other day, but then during fight week I do it every day.
Okay, awesome. And for just being mindful and everything, have you done that your whole life, or did you more so tap into that during the phases when you're kind of going through your transitions of just like any kind of problems you had in the fight game, etc.? Is that kind of when you like tapped into the mind and were able to learn and discover yourself, or you kind of been always kind of mindful?
I've always been mindful. I've been an athlete my entire life, been doing sports since I was 5. And so it's kind of just something that like, sometimes I just got a lot of thoughts going on and just want to write them down in between basketball games or whatever. I would sit there and pull out my notebook and write. So it's kind of something I've always done.
So with a win this weekend, then back to that, you'll arguably you'll be in the top 10 again. Is there anybody in the top 10 that you want to fight against next? Like
everybody.
Anybody focus on this one right now though.
Oh, absolutely. One step at a time. And so, I don't look past her at all. I'm absolutely excited for this fight though. But at the end of the day, obviously the goal is to climb the rankings again. And so, with the suspension that I've had, I was 4th and they pulled me out after this fight. I'll get thrown back in there. We'll see where that plays out. But at the end of the day, everybody brings a different challenge to the table. I love challenges, but my ultimate goal is that world title. And so anybody who's above me, let's go.
It's funny too. The fight game progresses so quick. So I feel like the average fight fan, it progresses. The average fight fan might not even know who you are right now for the new people. You know what I mean? It's like funny because it's like you were, like you said, you're literally 4th in the world 2 years ago, and then now someone looks in the UFC rankings like, oh, Raquel Pennington, like who's that? Blah blah blah. But it's like the OG fans, like we know,
Yeah, definitely, it's growing. It's cool to see it growing. But yeah, now, and especially with UFC throwing fights every weekend, like it's hard to keep up with. Sometimes people fight and I'm like, even me being a veteran of the sport, I'm like, who is that? Like, oh, so I mean, yeah, fans, fighters, whatever, like it is hard to keep up with, but that's just awesome to see how much the sport's actually growing.
As a fan and a journalist, I love how much fighting there is. There's literally like something to do every single day, and there's something to do every single weekend. Like there's contender series right now too at Dana White's thing right now on Tuesdays. So it's, and then even the round of promotions like LFA and stuff like that. There's fights all the time. Invicta has fights that are good too, and so
yeah, it's cool.
So you're living your dream right now as a UFC fighter. What advice do you have for anyone out there chasing their dream?
I always say have fun. The number one key is to have fun. That helps keep that passion. If you're not having fun, then it's not even really worth it. And then, work hard, be coachable. That's the most important. A lot of athletes, they let their egos get the best of them. And at the end of the day, like if you want to grow, challenge yourself and be coachable. Listen. And, there's going to be athletes, even if you think you're better than them, everybody shares a different knowledge. Like let yourself grow and, like I said, have fun.
I like that too, because like having fun is obviously important because you have to have fun to thrive. But the be coachable thing, I think that's like one thing that some people, they underappreciate that because they aren't coachable sometimes. And even myself, my whole life, I've had issues with ego, et cetera. And it's until you're able to be coachable, that's when you're going to able to help yourself and everyone else around you.
Absolutely.
Is it able to ask you a couple fight predictions for next week before my last question then?
Yeah.
Volkanovski and Ortega.
That's going to be a good fight, but I like Volkanovski, so.
Yeah, it's a tough, it's like, I'm like a big Max Holloway fan. So see, for the fact that Volk beat him twice, and like, I don't know if he did, but like for the fact he did beat him in the scorecards. Yeah. So it's like, I have to take Volk in that one too. Valentina and Lauren Murphy.
I think Valentina.
And Nick Diaz, Robbie Lawler.
Oh man, geez, I don't know. I'm a fan of them, so I'm gonna just wish both guys good luck.
Sounds good. And then last question then, after all the blood, sweat, and tears, what do you want to be remembered for?
It's just about leaving an impact. The biggest thing for me is the kids in the sport. For one, it's just like I've been blessed with these cards and whatnot and been able to live this life and truly grateful for it. But just to see the up and comers or, the people who are actually struggling and the little things that they're actually impacted by. So if anything of my story impacts somebody, like that's it for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that. And just the fact that you said that, you're already putting that energy into the universe. So we're already like slowly manifesting that thought. And I imagine that you do impact people. So I love that because you're a fighter that has people and eyes on you. And I wish you a lot of luck this weekend. And it's been great having you on the show. If you want to say anything to any sponsors, friends, or anything else before you go, the floor is yours. If not, thanks again.
First off, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was a great conversation. And yeah, of course, I always love to throw some love out to all my true fans and all the supporters out there, my family, my friends, all my coaching staff that stands beside me and everybody who believes in me. The training partners who have put in the work with me throughout this time frame and, the ones who they're my punching bags at the end of fight camp. I love you guys the most. And then, my nutritionist who truly helped me to kind of get back to where I'm at and feel healthy again and stuff. I am forever grateful for that. So it's exciting. And then, my sponsors, I need to make a list of them because it's hard to keep up with them. But all my sponsors that stand beside me, they know who they are. So send in that love.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on, Rocky. I truly appreciate your time and good luck this weekend.
Thank you. It's good talking to you.
Take care. Good luck.
Yeah, thanks.